What is up? You are watching the second episode of the Lax Factor Saturday College Lacrosse recap show. It was an interesting week. We start with a huge upset on Wednesday. High Point comes down to Duke and beats Duke in their place at their game. And then Friday night, Syracuse hosts Colgate. Colgate upset Syracuse 12-9 at the Dome, which is only the second time in John Desko's 20 years that he's ever lost a season opener. So that was huge. And one thing, we had other upsets and we had other mid-level programs hang with the Big Cats. But one thing that I wanted to touch on that I think is key and I think that we're seeing play out here, unintended consequences of the shot clock for the upper level teams. In a game like High Point Duke, in that fourth quarter, traditionally last year without the shot clock, High Point probably tries to play a little bit safer come the fourth quarter once they get that 2 or 3 goal lead, and that playing it safe sometimes could cause those teams to blow those leads because it would playing it safe and taking your foot off the gas allows the better team to try to climb back into it and maybe get some kind of flow in the desperation moments. We didn't see that. In the High Point game, they kept their foot on the gas. They buried Duke, and same thing happened with Syracuse and Colgate. At the end of that game, normally Colgate, 2-goal lead in the fourth quarter. Do they start stalling that ball out and allowing Cuse to work some of that late game Cuse magic? No chance. They end up keeping their foot on the gas, bury Cuse 12-9 instead of letting Cuse get back in it and force a close game towards the end of the fourth. So the shot clock, I think, is causing teams to play aggressive. And I think what we're seeing is with the leveling off of some of these mid-major programs against the major programs where the talent is a lot closer, these kids are able to ball. And in moments where their backs are against the wall because of the shot clock and they have no choice but to go to the rack, they're doing so, and it's working. It's creating a lot of parity in college lacrosse, and we should all be extremely excited about it. But there's a lot of action to go over here, so let's get into it. High Point traveled down to Duke on Wednesday and pulled out a huge upset over the Blue Devils by a score of 13-9. Tim Troutner for High Point was incredible in the cage. We watched it live here as we were doing a podcast, and I see Troutner 19 saves on the day. Joey Manown ended up going for 4 goals and an assist, and Chris Young for High Point, 4 goals and an assist also. But Troutner was the story. The kid stood on his head. Without him playing the way that he did in cage, no way this happens, and you could simply flip the script and Duke would have pulled it out 13-9. If Troutner just has 12 saves, 10 saves, just an average game, Duke wins this game, by 3 or 4. So hats off to Tim Troutner. The kid played like the best goalie in the country Wednesday night. I'm still high on Kobe Knies, but Troutner is definitely a kid to watch. So great job by High Point to upset number 2 Duke. Nick Petkevich helped Colgate beat the Syracuse Orange in the Dome on Friday night by a score of 12-9. He put up 4 goals, and his teammate Duncan Hoskinson puts up 3 in the win over Syracuse. Syracuse's defense looked terrible. They don't trust each other. You can tell they're sliding way too early, and then when they're not supposed to or they don't need to, and then they're not sliding in scenarios which it was obvious that they should have. Bright spot though, Drake Porter looked pretty solid in cage, so that looked good. And in the end, Brendan Curry goes 4-1, so that was another bright spot offensively for the Orange, and Nate Solomon 3-0 on the day. Griffin Cook didn't put up a point on Friday night, but he looked solid when he did carry the ball, and I thought they should have made an effort in the second half to get him the ball a lot more. Colgate's defensive midfielders looked excellent, and I think this is going to be a theme you're going to see with Syracuse. Offensively, especially without Tucker Dordovic, they're going to struggle playing against teams that have good, solid defensive midfield play, and then defensively, Syracuse is going to struggle against any team that runs a decent motion offense and is able to share the ball effectively, just like last year. Teams like Cornell and Hopkins that shared the ball well and that run a good motion set, they beat the Cuse up last year, and I think Cuse is going to struggle all year once again off ball against teams that are able to move the ball and share the ball effectively. We once again have a mid-level team beating a top-tier team, and I think the shot clock plays into that a little bit. First up, Penn State put it on Robert Morris by a score of 27-10. The Penn State offense is clicking on all cylinders. Grant Ahmet in his second game back, he's good for a goal and 6 helpers. And then you got Mac O'Keefe going for 5 goals with a helper. So offensively, they are a terror. Defenses should fear them. And then on the defensive end, with Kobe Canese having another big game, he saved the ball yesterday at a 73% clip with, I believe it was 11 saves on the day. So Penn State just buried Robert Morris. They are going to be scary in the Big Ten. I knew they were going to be good. I didn't know they were going to be quite this good. All went according to plan for Maryland against the Richmond Spiders on Saturday, right up until the fourth quarter. Maryland comes out and gets an early lead. Jared Bernhardt ends up with 5 goals on the day, which was pretty incredible. Furman and Wisniewski each put up 3 points apiece. Goalkeeping was mediocre. But the big story was Maryland coming into the fourth quarter with a big lead, and Richmond just chipped away. Lanchberry for the Spiders ends up with 5 goals on the day, and I believe he scored 3 or 4 of them back to back over the course of the fourth quarter. So a great showing by Richmond, especially to climb back in it. And once again, we see a scenario in which a top-tier program like Maryland, big lead, they're unable to just close the door on the mid-level programs. So far this season, we're seeing a lot of mid-level programs either hanging with or beating the top-level programs in the country. So this is great news for college lacrosse. Duke got a chance to follow up that terrible loss on Wednesday with a win over Jacksonville on Saturday. They succeeded. They end up beating Jacksonville by a score of 15-8. Eric Applegate leads Jacksonville with a goal and 3 assists, and Joe Robertson was good for 5 goals and 1 assist for Duke. It was overall unremarkable play by Duke and really solid play through 3 quarters for Jacksonville. They just couldn't keep it all together defensively in the fourth quarter. Duke ended up getting some transition to get a couple of goals and get comfortable, and that's the ball game. But in the end, Jacksonville, Galloway has to be pleased with the way his guys played through those 3 quarters, and that's a really good sign for them that they're making steps to kind of get to that next level, especially as they play against upper echelon teams. Ohio State played host to Boston University and beat them by a score of 17-10. Jack Jasinski was good for 5 goals. Trey LeClaire was 4-1, and Jack Myers 1-3 in the win over Boston University. One thing that I noticed was there were guys sniping from outside all day in this game. Just a ton of shots from downtown. So it was a rough day for goalies. Maybe playing inside had something to do with that. But Ohio State 2-0, proving that offensively they can hang, defensively they can hang. Alex Van de Bovenkamp looked really tough in Furman and helped Furman hang with UNC for as long as they could. Ends up being a 14-10 UNC win. Alex Trippy's good for 3 goals on the day, and Tanner Cook was good for 2 goals and a helper. It was a good showing offensively again for the second straight week for UNC, and Furman, playing a top-tier team, ended up proving that they deserved to be there by hanging in this game. They played decent against Duke, and now they play decent against UNC. So for Furman, that's a really good sign. And for UNC, as long as they can start putting it together a little bit better on defense, they're going to be scary in the ACC, and they could actually turn their fortunes around. They're playing better right now than teams like Syracuse, and then UVA's defensive showing was poor, even though they were playing Loyola. But it's a good sign for UNC that their offense is clicking on all cylinders right now, and defensively they just have to tighten up a few things, and they're going to be a ridiculously solid team coming out of the ACC. One of the big surprises on the day was Loyola's pounding of UVA, 17-9. That was impressive. Pat Spencer proved he is the best player in the country by putting up 5 goals and 2 assists on a very game UVA. Stover looked incredible in cage, putting up 18 saves on the day, never letting Virginia's offense look comfortable. They were constantly being stopped on the doorstep. They had early success shooting from outside on Stover, and Stover found a lot of success trying to, stop balls within the 5-yard range within the first and second quarters. But in the end, he was a ball stopper all day, just killing UVA's offensive flow. And defensively, Loyola looked solid across the board. So Loyola is going to be scary if they're able to put it on UVA, because UVA is legitimately one of the best teams in the country offensively. Being able to keep UVA under 10 goals is incredible for Loyola's defense. A great sign for the Greyhounds. And look out for Pat Spencer. 5-2. He faced double teams. He was able to distribute those 2 helpers and put up 5 goals with all the attention that he garnered from the UVA defense. So a hell of a game by him, proving that he is the best player in the country right now and the leader in the Tewaaraton race. So Loyola, look out for them. Kieran Mullins blew up in the fourth quarter for Rutgers to help give them a 19-15 win over St. John's on the day. He was helped by Adam Charlambides. He was good for 4 goals and an assist. St. John's goalie played terrible. It was a good game through most of the game. In the fourth quarter, St. John's actually had a lead at one point. Kieran Mullins just trashed on them in the fourth. St. John's could not get a save. They could not get a stop as Rutgers just continued to roll. They got the lead back. They end up keeping that lead and winning 19-15. So great job by Rutgers. Mullins looked incredible. Mike Madsen actually looked really good for St. John's with a 4-goal, 1-assist effort. So he's poised to have another great season as well. Senior faceoff specialist Alex Woodall torched Johns Hopkins at the faceoff X, went 21-28 on the day to help lead Towson's upset of Hopkins by a score of 17-8. The other big story on the day was Brendan Sunday going for 6 goals and 2 assists for Towson. He's a big beast of an attackman, and he was unstoppable. He was sticking corners. He was dodging to the cage. Hopkins had no answer for him at all. Offensively, Hopkins just couldn't get in a flow. Towson played incredible from a defensive perspective. Their goalie, Tyler Canto, 10 saves on the day, 55% save percentage, and you just didn't hear the usual suspects. They just didn't show for Hopkins. Cole Williams was 1-3 on the day for 4 points. Joey Epstein good for 1 goal and 1 assist on the day. And my boy, Kyle Marr, 1 goal. So that's not going to get it done for Hopkins. They did not look good defensively, but that was largely due to the fact they were playing defense most of this damn game. So an excellent job by Woodall. If he can continue that, Towson's going to be tough. I'd actually kind of called this. I figured Hopkins was going to pull this out and win, but I said that Towson, they're not afraid of Hopkins, and they're playing in their place. So they're used to playing Hopkins. Their balls hang low when Hopkins, their balls hang low. Maybe it's their dongs hang low